What's good, team? Welcome to another Small James coding tutorial where today we're going to be building this portfolio right here. We're going to be building in Next.js with Tailwind. Now, this is the portfolio that I use to land full stack developer jobs, and it has worked phenomenally for me, so I figured I would share it with everybody. Essentially, what it is the homepage is a digital resume. We've got all of our core links, some of our technologies that we're familiar with. We have a section where we can check out the projects, work history just for fun, and then some links at the bottom. So super easy for prospective employers or just anyone to come and look, immediately see what your skills are. If we click on the project section, we get taken through to this little page here where we've got some of our projects mapped out, some descriptions. And if we go ahead and click on them, they will open up in the actual project so that people can go and interact with them and try them out. We also have cool little features such as PDF resume, which opens up your resume in a PDF document. So that is super helpful. And if you're on a mobile device, that will just download the PDF. And, as I kind of mentioned before, just a bunch of other little links. And it's just overall a nice responsive web page. If we just take a look at how it looks on a mobile, you can see that everything scales down really nicely. And if we come through to the project section, likewise with the projects, they just map out like that. It's also going to be a great project to get familiar with Next.js and Tailwind, componentry, responsive web design, state, just about everything you could want to know to go and build your own web applications in this tech stack. So if you enjoy the video, don't forget to like and subscribe. It helps the channel and I super appreciate it. And without further ado, let's dive into the code. So to begin, I'm going to start off inside of my terminal in the directory of my choosing. And here we notice that I have the TailwindCSS docs open for initializing a project with Next.js. Now, what we're going to do is go ahead and type these in our window just here. So we're going to go mpx create next app at latest, and that's going to be the name of our project, which is going to be dev portfolio TypeScript ESLint for some linting. Now, if I hit enter on that, that is going to initialize my project, and we can go through these configuration steps. So we're going to proceed. Will we like Tailwind with this project? Absolutely. Do we want to use the source directory? We'll go ahead and say yes. The app router, yes. Would you like to default? No. And now our project is going to be installed, all of the dependencies installed. And now that that's all done, we can cd into dev portfolio and go ahead and just open that up inside of our Visual Studio Code editor. Now, just because that is all finished does not mean we are done with our Tailwind installation. However, we just take a second to look at what we've got. We've got some Tailwind config files, our package.json, a README. We have our source directory with, some important little files here. So this is all inside of our app directory. We also have a public directory, which, we can use to save assets that we want to serve with our project. And we have our node modules folder. So the files we're going to be working with is predominantly this, not really this global CSS. We can probably go ahead and delete everything in here. So that's all good, but definitely the layout, which is going to be important for defining the layout that wraps our entire application. This is a special page name that is automatically going to be used to wrap this page.typescript just here, which we can see is styled out. However, we can go ahead and get rid of everything and just return a main. So now if we carry on with some of these instructions, we can come over here and open up a new terminal. That's going to open up a new terminal down the bottom, and we can just go ahead and paste the remainder of these commands in. So that's just a Tailwind installation. We have the Tailwind CSS, which already exists, so that's actually fine. And what we're going to do is we're just going to basically leave everything just in there. So that's pretty much all done. So now if we go ahead and run npm run develop, that's going to open up our project on local host 3000. And now we have a blank page. And if we come into our main just here, we should be able to have a h1 tag with a class of text green 400 that says hello world. And that does in fact pop up on our screen. green as we would expect. So that's the whole configuration done for Tailwind and our Next.js app. The next thing we're going to do is just define some routes. So we're going to come inside of this app directory just here, have a new folder, which is going to be projects, just like that. In here, we're going to have a page.tsx, and we can just go ahead and copy this page, paste it in there, and this can just be projects page. Nice and easy. And so if I just go ahead and type James projects in here, the way we would expect this to work is this should be a new route within our application. So the app is our home route, which renders out this layout and this page, where the layout wraps the page. You can see here we have the children content, so that's what we're talking about. The children is everything inside of this page.typescript. And now we have a subroute with the same. We have a subroute projects that has a page, which is essentially just the index file that gets rendered at that route. And we would expect to see James's projects. If I come in here, we do indeed see James's projects. So it's good to know that our routing is done, and those are the two main routes that we will need for our project. So the first component we're going to start off styling is our home component just here. And if we come back to portfolio.smalljames.com, all these links will be down in the description if you're looking for the inspiration. We can see that essentially how it works is we have a header, and then we just have some content. And if we come up to a big screen size, this just stays centered in the middle of the page. And so what we can go ahead and do is we can actually come into our body just here, knock this children down onto a different section, and we can go ahead and start adding in some class names. We're just going to add on the font because we'll keep it for the minute. So this is going to allow us to do Tailwind styles and have that class name. And that'll do for the second. And for the HTML in here, we're going to need a header. This is going to have an H1 tag that says James MacArthur. This would just be your name. We're going to have a secondary H1 tag after this, which is just the shortened version, so JM. Then we're going to have the children content, and then at the bottom of the page we're going to have the footer, and that's where we can have all of our links. So that is all groovy. Inside here we're going to have two divs. So the first div is going to have an anchor tag, or let's just say an H4, that is PDF resume. We're going to have two more. One of them is going to be projects. And, you know, if you wanted to, or if it was relevant to you, you could have a blog. And then inside of this other div just here, we're going to have our three icons, which we can come back and add later. So that's going to just about do it for our layout.typescript. The next component we're going to start styling is our app. So since I practically have everything open, I can just go ahead and close that. Now in here we can obviously go ahead and just remove this H1 tag, and instead what we're going to have is have an H2 tag. This is going to say digital resume. And because we're being fancy, we're just going to copy all of those extra keys. Underneath this, we're going to have an H4 that just says a little bit about yourself. So it's going to be James MacArthur, in my case, web developer and educator. Under this, we're going to have our first section. So this is going to be a section. This section is just going to have some links. So for our links, what I'm going to do is come up here and say const links is equal to an array. Every array is going to have a name. So this is going to be email, and then the link is going to just be there, and then we're going to have a third one that's the content that is actually going to be displayed. And we can just duplicate this a bunch of times. So here I have, you know, a few of them. Let's just make sure we have some commas at the end of these. So the second one is going to be GitHub. The third one is going to be LinkedIn, and obviously these are just going to be whatever links that you have available. YouTube. This one is going to say jamesmcalive.com. This one is going to be James MCA. This one is going to be James MacArthur, and this one is going to be Small James. And now we can map these out inside of our section here. So we can say links.map link as well as the link index. We can go ahead and open this up, and we're going to return a div with key equal to the link index, because that needs to be a unique index. And in here what we can do is have a paragraph that is just bold, and that is going to be the link.name, and then after that we can have a second paragraph that just has the link.content. And we'll probably come back and change these to links or anchor tags at some point in the future, just not in this minute. After that, we're going to have a new section, and this one is going to have a similar H4. So I think I can actually go ahead and move this H4 in here, because that's obviously starting that section. This one is going to say skills. And underneath that, we can have a similar thing as we've done above. We can have const skills is equal to an array. We can have the name parameter, which is just going to be, JavaScript. And then we can have another array as the second, so we'll say sub skills is equal to, React, so on and so forth. And we can just go ahead and map all those out. So here I have 4 of them. The second one is going to be Python. So these are kind of how I've divided my, capabilities. We've got web skills, and then we have design skills. And then in here we have React Native, Svelte Kit, and Node.js. In Python, obviously we have data analysis, we have Django, Flask, and data visualization. For our web skills, we have Sass, TailwindCSS, Firebase, NoSQL, SQL, Heroku. Actually, Heroku is dead, so let's just say, Netlify, AWS, Google Cloud Platform, Git, Docker, Kubernetes, and that should just about do it for the second. And then finally we have the last one, and this is just going to be Canvas, Pixlr, and Figma. Just those 3 there. And so now we can have some similar content as we have just here. So what I'm going to do is duplicate this, move it down, and now we can just change this to be skills. This can be the skill, and this can be the skill index, as we have just there. And now what this means we can do is replace some of these. Oh, that's the wrong one. That should go there. And then what we're going to do just here is we're going to have skill.subskills.join the whole array with a comma and a space. So now if we come back to our one, we can see that in our home directory, we have all of this content just here. So, there's all our main ones, and then we have skills, and now we have all of our skills listed out. So that is working nicely. Obviously this looks terrible. We will get to the design in a second. So after that section, we have another one. And this is going to have the H4. And that is just going to be projects. And then after that, we're just going to have a simple thing here that says check out my latest. And then we can have an anchor tag that has projects. Easy breezy. And then finally, we have the work history. You guys know everything about me now. And actually, that's not finally. We've got one more that's just for fun. Just for fun. And this can have all of our things just here. So up the top, what we're going to need to do is do the same thing for work history is equal to an array. And we're also going to need const hobbies is equal to 1 as well. So now for the work history, we're going to have the same thing. So we're going to have a name, which is going to be, the job. And we're also going to include the years in here. And then we're going to have the bio or description. And that's just going to say, whatever it's going to say. And we'll put that a couple times, make sure once again to include the commas at the end. And then likewise for hobbies, we're going to have the name, which is going to be, making coding videos. And then we're also going to have the bio or description. I really enjoy programming. So now we're going to duplicate that a couple times. Obviously yours would want to be unique. And now we can come back down here. We're going to copy this section here because this is the mapping over the content. Paste it in these two. And now we can go ahead and style them. Although what I'm actually going to do is, since a lot of them have, very similar properties, I'm actually going to define an additional component. So up the top here, we're going to come into our directory. Inside of our source, we're going to make a new folder called components. And in here, I'm just going to say description map.tsx. We're going to type RFC to export a default component. And in here, what I will do is just copy one of these sections. So, just as we have here. And inside of our description map, I'm going to paste that just in there, except we're going to receive some props. And from that, we're going to receive our list. We're going to destructure our list, which is going to be the list of items, and also an optional type from the props. And so this can change to list. This can be list item, and this can be list index. And then here we're going to swap that over, swap that over, swap that over. And these top ones are an optional href, so we can do some special stuff depending on what the thing is. Now, we'll come back to that in a second, but first what we're going to do is actually import this component in here. So I'm going to type description map. That's going to be imported at the top of our component, so you want to make sure that imports. And in here, I'm going to pass in some props, which is going to be our list. And in this case, it's going to be the first one. So what was this? This was our links, I think is what I called them. And the type is, we'll call that link. And then we will save that, see if our project still works. We can see that it totally still works. So that is mapping out correctly. We have our links just here. Then what we're going to do is basically replicate this for all of them. So I'm going to change, this one is going to be skills, type skills. The next one is just going to be that's not going to change. Here we're going to have work history. So this one is going to be work history. And we'll say work. And then finally, we're going to have one here, which is just going to be skills. Is that the... No, that should be just for fun. Hobbies, sorry, not that. So we'll change that hobbies, and we'll call that hobbies. And what that's going to allow us to do is make some neat little changes as to how the content displays itself depending on what the type is. So in here, what we can do is we can say, the name stays always the same. The name is very consistent. However, the part that changes is this item here. So what we can do is we can say const content display is equal to an object, and we can basically have all the different types and return a different element depending on what it is. This is just one of many ways you could do it, but we're going to say, so what were our different types? So we've got hobbies, work, skills, and links. Hobbies, work, skills, and links. Okay, so that'll work. So we're going to have hobbies, and then something. I'll just give these all commas. This one's going to be work, this one's going to be skills, and this one's going to be links. And the reason we're doing this is because in the instant where we have an anchor tag, just up the top, that's the one that we're going to return. So this is going to be, let me think about this for a second. I think this is actually going to be, they're all going to be functions. So this is just going to change slightly more. And this is going to allow us to take an argument, which is going to be the object essentially. And in here we can just take the object dot content, and we can do that for all of them. So if I just come up here, this can be object dot content. And so now we can see, so we've done the links. This one is just going to be pretty simple, except we know that this is going to be an array. So for the skills, we're going to have to say dot join, comma space. For work, that's pretty straightforward, nothing special there, that's just all text. And likewise for the rest of it. So in those instances, we can actually just have a paragraph tag for all of these, to be honest. So these are going to be the different types of content that we can display. And now what's going to happen is in here, instead of having this, we can call content display for that type, and that's going to be a function, and we can just pass in the list item as the object. And that should display on our screen just the same. We got an issue, cannot read properties are undefined, and that is because we have to actually make sure that everything is called content. So if we come back up here, essentially what we want to do is just change all of these to content. Just like this. So content. So it's just name and content. So they're all very consistent. And now we are having an issue because that's hobbies, that's skills, description map. Let's actually just remove that for a second and just see what displays. So you can see here we have all of the headers, but we're not actually getting the content displaying. And that's obviously because I'm passing in the list index and not the list item. So that's totally my bad. Now you can see that that all comes out properly, and we can actually make that how it was meant to be, .join, comma, space. So now we have exactly the same thing with a whole lot less repeated code. We have some tidy little componentry just in here, so that is looking good. We've added the bolt around that first thing. So this is pretty much this page all done for the logic. The next thing we're going to have to do is style it. So we're going to start off our styling in this main section here, and well, actually that's a lie. We're going to start off in our layout.typescript with the body, and here we set the class name to enter. Whereas if we take a look at this one just here, let's see what font is being used. We might have a couple of fonts. So up the top here we have a font family of Poppins. What's this? This is also Poppins. So it looks like we're going to be using Poppins. Excellent font, big fan. So we can go ahead and change this to Poppins. Just like that. And we can say in here font, is it font weights? I have the line that we're going to use just here. So we're going to say const Poppins is equal to that. Make sure that it's imported up the top. Once again, if you're looking for this code, the link to the GitHub will be in the description down below. But now we have Poppins, and so we can just make sure that the whole thing is set to Poppins really easily, poppins.classname, and that should be the lowercase p just there. So now if we refresh this page, our whole page is in Poppins, so that's all good. The first thing we're going to start off styling is the header. So if we come back over to our page just here, we see that the header element actually has a maximum width, and depending on the size of the page, we change what we display. So to achieve this, in here what we're going to do is we're going to create a div. This is going to have a class of flex items, center, max width of maybe 1,000, or we could say 900 pixels, an MX of order so that it's centered, and a width of full. And then for the header, what we can do is we can say class name flex padding, looks like it's maybe a 4 or a 6, we could probably say 6, and border bottom. So let's take a look at that. That's what it's looking like just there, which is pretty equivalent. The other thing we're going to do is we're going to give both these elements classes. So the top class is going to be hidden, but then on a small screen we're going to say inline, and this one is going to be on a small screen hidden. So what that's going to mean is that on a small screen we have that. As soon as we hit the breakpoint, it's going to change. Now this should also be anchor tags. Well, actually even better, we can say links. We can use next link and we can import that up the top. So now that we have the link imported up the top, and they both need an href. And so we can come in here and give them both hrefs. And that is just going to be the home route. So now whenever we click that, that's just going to take us back home. We're also going to change the font weight. So we're going to say font semi-bold, if I can spell that correctly. And I'm going to say text small. So it's just a little bit smaller. So that's our header. Maybe that's actually meant to be a medium. Yeah, that looks pretty good. Honestly, looks like it's still a bit big, so I might just come in here and say text extra small, and then on a small screen it can go to text small. And I'm also just going to say the padding here is 6. I'm going to say padding 4, but on a small screen or bigger, then go up to a 6. So it's just going to be nice and small, and then it's going to come to a maybe a padding of 5 on a bigger screen. So that's the first thing done. After we've done the header, we may as well come down and do the footer. This is going to have a class of flex item center justify center flex column. And then for each of these divs, these are going to have class flex item center justify center gap of 4. So that's it down here. The whole footer is going to have a padding of maybe 8 pixels so that it really separates itself. We're going to say text is small, and for, let's have a look at what do we have. So it's actually got a much bigger padding. The text is actually extra small, I think. Let's see if it gets any bigger on a bigger screen. Okay, so it does grow on a bigger screen. We're going to say, just like we did with the top, border top. We're going to say text slate 600, small screen, we're going to say text small, and we're going to say the padding is 4, but the padding Y is going to be 10, maybe even like 16, to be honest. It's huge. Yeah, that's probably more what we're looking at. And then what we can do in these elements is just say a gap of 8 or maybe 6. Now, for these ones, we're just going to have a padding with a vertical line, and we can just duplicate that, put that in there. So there are our vertical lines, which is pretty easy. These are all actually going to be changed to, well, at least these ones are going to be changed to anchor tags with links that will come soon, but we'll style them shortly. We are also, well, actually now we're probably ready to actually just start styling this whole thing. So it looks like the main section, which is going to be inside of our page just here, this is going to have a class of flex, flex column gap of 8. Let's see what that looks like. It's perhaps too big. We're going to say a padding of 4. We might say gap of 6 maybe. I mean, honestly, even that looks too big. Why don't we just inspect? So this right here just has a padding bottom. This also has a padding bottom. And then these have a gap of 3. So that's actually really easy. So we can just set the padding bottom there. It looks like the padding bottom is 5 and the padding bottom is 5. So we can actually do that. That's class padding bottom of 5. This is also going to have a class of padding bottom of 5, and that will be consistent with all of these H4s, so we can come back and do that in a second. The other thing I'm going to do is come into our component, which is the description map, and give this a class of flex col gap 3, and then the actual element can have a class of flex item center, and then I think it's going to be, let's just see what that gap actually is. The gap is 1.5, and then we can say flex wrap if necessary. Now these sizes are going to be way smaller, so I'm going to say text extra small. On a small screen, we're going to go text small. So now we can kind of see this taking shape a little bit. This is all within our main, which is once again going to have the same max width of a custom 900 pixels, so that's inside the square brackets. Don't forget the MX auto and the width full. So that's just going to mean that as we come out onto a big page, it doesn't go any further. What was the gap between these elements, I think? So it looks like the gap is 5 essentially, and then what we should be able to do is just get rid of the padding bottom. So that should be pretty similar. We're going to come over to this digital resume, and that is going to be font bold text 2XL small text 3XL medium text 4XL. So that's going to be huge, taking shape for the whole document. So that's going to be inside of our layout. We're going to come up to the body here, and this should be min height screen flex column. So that's all good, and we're going to say text slate 800. So that's just going to ease off the color a little bit, which is a bit nicer. And then what we are going to actually have to do is have a padding bottom of 4 on all of these headers. So what I'll do up the top here is we're just going to have a function header text, or we can actually say section header text. And this can just have the props. We can say const children is equal to props. And in here, what we can do is we can just return the h4 that's going to have a class padding bottom of 5. And if we look in here, it looks like it's going to be text extra large, font semi-bold. So it's going to be text extra large, font semi-bold. And in here, we can just return the children, which is going to be whatever the element is. And now we can come down here, and whenever we have an h4, we can replace this with section header text and then close that. And we can see that that comes in nicely. However, also, it looks like that's not the end of the story. Font semi-bold, text extra large. What are we looking at? Let's have a look. It almost looks too bold in our one. Poppins. I would say that maybe the issue is that our text color's too dark. So we're going to say 700, bring it down a little bit. And for the header component, I'm actually just going to, so back into the page, I'm going to say font medium. Maybe we do just stick with semi-bold, and what I'll do is I will bring up this. So it's going to be text 4XL, text 3, 4, and 5. So this is going to be huge. Nice big digital resume. Yeah, that looks better. So that's cool. So now what we can do is we can come down to each of these sections, copy the section header tag. Underneath each one, we can paste it just there. And then we can just displace the text. So it's going to be that one. Remove the h4. And once again, you'll note with this solution that we just really save on heaps of the repeated text, which is super important. And we don't want to go repeating too many lines of code. It's just not efficient. So there we've got the... Nice. And so just like that, we can see we're starting to make some good progress. One thing that I noticed that I forgot is in this one here, these all need to be closed. And so now that we have all of our section headers, we can go ahead and delete all of these h4s. There. So that is all good. And now if we take a look at our one versus their one, or the original one, everything is looking pretty similar, except this text is larger than this. This is pretty much the same, and then these are too big. So we're going to have to come in and drop the sizes of these down. And so that's pretty easy to do. So the first thing we're going to do is come up to our h2 here, and I'm actually just going to pump this up once more so it's huge. So now we can see that that matches perfectly. And then we can go ahead and inside of the description map, we can come in here and just, this should be extra small. So now it's that same small size, and then on a bigger screen, obviously it enlarges. So after that, the next thing we're going to do is add this underline feature that we have just here. That's super cool. And we're also going to style these links. So in here, we can take the type and we can add a conditional style onto, well, well, actually even better than that, we can just style the anchor tag specifically, and we can say class is equal to text cyan 400. So now we have that cyan text. However, that looks like it's not quite right. Maybe instead of cyan, we're going to say sky. And that's definitely a closer, more accurate representation. We're going to do the same thing to check out my latest projects just here. We're going to say class name is equal to text sky 400, and we're going to change this anchor to a link, the next link, and we are going to give it an href equals to just /projects. The other thing we're going to do is make sure that this matches the rest. So we're going to say class text extra small, small text small. So now it's going to be equivalent to the other ones, and that's now going to take us to the projects page, which works well. And now for the section underline, what we're going to do is we're going to give a relative style to this. We're going to say overflow hidden, and then inside of here we're going to have a div with class background. Let's see what color it is. So it's kind of like a purple. We'll say background purple, if I can spell that correctly, purple 600. Height is 1, width is full, absolute positioning, we'll say right full, so that's going to push it way outside the left hand side. We're going to say bottom 0, just as we have here. And now we'll close that div. And if I just remove this overflow hidden for a second, we should actually have all of these popping up, so we can see that they do pop up, which is good. I'm going to drop the height down to 1 pixel, maybe 2 pixels. So just give it a custom amount. And now what we're going to do is we're going to say group, as well as overflow hidden, add that back. And now we can add a duration of 200 here, and we can say on group hover, translate X full. So now we have that effect coming in nicely. Now I think that purple could just be a purple 400. So it's a lighter color, and we could probably make the duration 300 so it's a bit slower. So that's nice and neat. Now the other thing I'm going to do is just make sure that these anchor tags also have an href, and that's going to be object.link, which should be fine. And then the other thing I'm going to do is just give them a cursor pointer and a target is equal to underscore blank so that they get opened up on a new page. And for these, what you'll want to do is come back up to your links section up here, and we can just take all of these just here and put comma and then add the link parameter. And in here, I'm just going to put a random link, but you would obviously want to link to your site specifically. So the link is going to be to, I already have a link, so I'm actually going to go ahead and remove these ones. So you would want to go ahead and put links to your respective sites, but now when I click on that, it's going to go ahead and open up that link in a new tab. The other thing we're going to do quickly is come into our layout just here, and we're going to change this metadata, so we can just say dev James, and we can give the page a description, which is, this is my Neato developer portfolio. Just has to be done, so that's going to change what is displayed up there. And then we're also just going to come into the footer page. So here we have the layout. So we want to come down to the footer. And for these ones just here, we're going to add some Font Awesome icons. So we're going to come over to Font Awesome 6 CDN 6.0. Once again, the links for this kind of stuff will be in the description down below. And we're just going to copy this top link tag right here. And in our layout, inside of the HTML tag, we're going to add a head, paste that link in, make sure that the cross origin and referrer policy are both camel case, and that will allow us to come over to Font Awesome Icons, and we can come to their icon sets, and we can type in, you know, YouTube. Well, YouTube, for example. Oh, well, actually, let's go with LinkedIn. If we look up LinkedIn, select their free icons, here we have this one. We can just copy this class tag down here, come into our layout down the bottom for our footer, and you know, we could just swap this out for a LinkedIn. Obviously we want to make that class name. And now if we come back to our page, we can see that we have that little LinkedIn icon right there. So that's super easy. And then if we look here, you know, we have GitHub, that's going to be a good one. And I also have YouTube. So you can just look up whatever icons are relevant for your links, copy them in as such. And I'm actually just going to be lazy and duplicate them. We're going to up the size. We're going to say text large, small, text extra large. So they should be a bit bigger. And now we kind of have a neat little footer where we're also going to come over to these H4s. We're going to say class cursor pointer, hover, opacity 60, duration 200. So now when we hover, we will just they will just go a little bit more, will become a little bit less opaque. The opacity will drop. You can't actually see it, but we can see that, you know, now the opacity has dropped on these elements, which is just what we're talking about. And we can do the exact same thing with these three elements just here. We can say, actually what I'm going to do for these three elements is I'm going to create an anchor tag, duplicate that 3 times, and then I'm just going to move these icons inside of the anchor tags because they're also going to be links. So, you know, just like this, nice and easy. And then what we can do is just copy this whole class name and paste it on every anchor tag that we have here. And then you can just add the hrefs to them. So the href would be, let's see, href, we want one there, and we want one there. Href is equal to, you know, whatever it might be. Once again, I'm just going to go do Google. So now they'll just take us to Google, which is pretty straightforward. And you'll want to also add the target underscore blank to each of them too. So we can just do that very quickly. Target is equal to underscore blank. So that is hunky-dory. So now if I click on this link, it just takes us to Google, or, you know, in your case, it would take you to your respective things. Now for project, we're going to go ahead and change this one to a link tag because this is, you know, an internal page. And this one is just going to take us to href equals /projects. Nice and easy. So that's going to take us to the project page. Then it takes us back home. We've got our digital resume. We've got all of our cool stuff. It's nice and responsive. And so now we're pretty much in a position where we can go ahead and style our projects page. So if we come through to projects, in here what we're going to do is give this a class, flex column, gap of 5. Well, actually, I'm not going to worry about the gap for just a second. But what I am going to do is say flex 1, MX auto, and make sure that we have the same, if we look in here, you'll see that we added these max widths. So we're just going to set these same max widths inside of our project page. So that should keep the footer down the bottom, which is nice and neat. That still works real good. The other thing we will do is we probably have a padding up here, so we'll just reuse the same padding inside of our projects page for consistency's sake. And now if we look at the projects page over here, Clicking on it, we have a video, and then we have some text with, that's a link and a description. And so essentially what we're going to do is have all of these. So we're going to say const projects is equal to an array. In here we're going to have a name, a link, a description, and an image video link. And for each of these I'm going to give them all values. And now what we can do is put a comma here, duplicate this 3 times, and now we have each of our projects. So I'm just going to do the same project 3 times. It's going to be pretty straightforward, and essentially how that's going to look is, this could be personal portfolio. The description is going to be a whole bunch of long text. That is just, a good description of the project. Let's just make that all nice and neat. Since I'm going to duplicate it, I'm just going to get rid of these 3. The link is going to be https://google.com. Once again, you'll want this to be either the link to the GitHub page or the link to the actual project. And then the video link is going to be .public/video.mp4. Which I will create in a second, and we will go ahead and paste that into there in a second. So I'm going to duplicate this 3 times. So there are our videos. Now in here what I'm going to do is have a component, well, more specifically I'm going to say projects.map. We're going to say project index, open that up, we're going to return. And in here, we're going to have the project card. Now that doesn't exist for the second, but we are going to have to give it a key that is equal to the project index. And we're also going to pass in the project equals project, just like that. And the last thing we're going to do is also just pass in the index, which is going to be, once again, the project index. Now, if we come into our components directory, we can go ahead and create that. New file project card.tsx. We can RFC this component. Here we receive the props, and inside of the props we have const project and index equals props, and we'll see why that's relevant in a second. And now we should be able to import this component up the top. So that's imported just there. And now that means that in our portfolio page, we have 3 project cards rendering out, which is just what we would expect. Now, this is going to be pretty straightforward. Essentially, for each project card, these are going to have a class equal to flex. Well, actually, even before that, what I'm going to do is just bring a video in. So for the video, we're going to open up the public directory just here. And I am going to copy, well actually just drag and drop in a video to this directory. So here we have a screen recording. It's just going to be video.mov in this case. So what we're also going to do now that we have this video is come into our project list and make sure that the name is updated. So just here, this is going to be video.mov so that it actually gets the correct video. Obviously, you'd want videos for each of your projects. And now what we can do is we can come into our project card and we can just start creating the elements. So we can have an h1 tag, well actually we'll call it an h2 tag. This is going to be project.name. So now we would expect the project.name to come up, which it does. After that, what we're going to do is we're going to have a paragraph tag, and this is going to be project.description. So there's the 3 descriptions. We are going to say, let's have a look at how it looks over here. So essentially we have our video, then we have the section, and then, so on and so forth. And so we are going to have to wrap these sections just here inside of a div this is going to have a class name equal to text flex column gap of maybe 4, and maybe also a padding of 4, and on a small screen we'll say padding of 6. And then above this we can have our video, and we can have the source equal to project dot, what do we call it? It is the video link. And we can go ahead and close that. And honestly, I might just wrap that in a div for the sake of having that in a div. So if we come back to our page, we would expect the video to render out. And so it's not, and that must be, let's see if we're getting any errors or what that might be. Failed to load the resource, so it didn't find the resource. So let's just say, let's call it. Okay, so that actually works. So what we want to do is just get rid of the .public and just have the video.mov. So it obviously reads the assets naturally, so that's, you know, handy dandy ultra. And so now inside of our project card, that's all working. And if we come back in here, we can see that the video does indeed sit inwards a little bit, except on a small screen. So the way that we can achieve this is by coming into our projects here, and we're actually going to remove the padding of 4. And that means that everything's going to fit the side of the screen, and it's going to be, you know, pretty neat up until we hit that max width criteria, and then it's just going to grow from there. So that is looking pretty good. Now we can go ahead and style out the h1 tag. So we can say class name equals text center. We can say text 2XL, small text 3XL, medium text 4XL. We can also say font semi-bold. It's going to be nice and big. And then we are going to need to do a couple of other things. So the h2 is going to go inside of an anchor tag. And this is essentially going to have the link. So this is going to have an href equal to project.link. And once again, that's going to be a target underscore blank. And so we should be able to hover over that. What we're going to do is say class is going to be duration 200, and on hover we're going to say opacity 60. So now when we hover over, it's a bit softer. Here we have the text. This is going to be a class name equals to text small. And I might actually once again say text extra small, and then on a small screen we'll say text small. And we could also say text justify. Almost just looks a bit better. And here are our 3 portfolio projects. And now on a big screen, what we're going to do is just take the index, and we're going to say, in here we have flex column. This is going to, on a medium screen, go to flex row. However, that is going to depend on the index. And so what I mean by that is if we, well, actually it's going to be this one here. So this is flex and flex column. And now what we can do is we can say plus index remainder 2 equals 0 question mark, apply one style, otherwise apply another style. So in here we can say medium flex row reverse. If it is, well actually no, we'll say flex row, and for every odd entry we'll say flex row reverse. So this can be medium flex row reverse. And so what that means is it's not going to do much on a small screen, but as soon as we get to a big screen, we're going to get this effect just here, where we have our alternating things. And what I might also just do is give this a class name of flex1, and also give this a class of flex1. And so now when we come out, they're both going to be, square and rectangular and take up equivalent amounts of space. And I think that actually means that we can get rid of the maximum width on this one and just let it go as big as it possibly can. So now it's going to kind of have this effect. And I think that the other thing we can do is, let's have a look, projects, flex. I think this padding is not contributing. So let's see if we get rid of the padding. Now it's actually square. So that's actually what we want. And the way that we can achieve this is just by wrapping this in a div flex column. And we can give this the flex of 1. This can still have a flex of 1. It doesn't really matter. And now inside of here, we can give this the class of padding 4, small padding 6. And that's still split them up. So I retract that statement. We're going to remove this. And instead what we're going to do is just put a padding on the elements themselves, P6. And we're going to do exactly the same with this anchor tag just here. So that works nicely, and we can consequently get rid of this gap because that's going to be way too big. And I might also just make it so that on the header, these are just PXs, so that these will sit. Oh no, that's the wrong way around. So on the text is where we're going to do it. So that's going to be a PX. And we might also just add a PB of 4. But I'll make this one small, and this can be a PB of 6. So that's kind of what we're talking about here. Looks pretty good on this screen. We come up to a bigger screen, and that is good. And we're also just going to have an, does the video autoplay? It does. So I think what I'm going to do is just on the video have auto play and controls. I think is the other one we need. So what that means is that in here we can play the videos, and I think I actually prefer to have the controls on them, although not necessarily. Let's just try autoplay. So if I refresh this page, and I think that might not be, let's just try that lowercase autoplay. And that's not happy, so let's just try autoplay equals true. Alright, maybe the solution is to just have controls on them, I think. And that way the user can kind of just see what they do and don't play controls. So now each of the projects will have a little autoplay that they can kind of go through. And if they click that, that will take them to the link. And the other thing I'm going to do is on a medium screen, well actually this can be in general, we can say justify center items center. And that's just going to push the content into the middle of these divs. And then once again, when we come back on a small screen, that still looks cash money. And we're also just going to make sure that these project cards have a different, well actually I might as well do it in the, here we'll say BG Slate 100. Just so that they're darker than the rest of the page, and so you get some distinguishing from the footer down the bottom there, which is, over here. And now the last thing we have to do is the PDF resume. So for that, all we have to do is come into our app just here. Well, actually I lied, into the layout where we have the element, and we're just going to look for the PDF. This is going to be changed to an anchor tag because it needs to be an anchor tag. What we're going to do is we're going to have download on it, and we're also going to give it an href equal to a value that we'll see in a second, and we are just going to have our PDF dragged into the public directory of our project. So just here, let's just rename this. This isn't my resume, but it may as well be. We have our resume.pdf. And now what we can do is we can just have this as /resume.pdf. And now when I go ahead and click on this, this is going to download that resume for us. So if we save that, we can then, view that resume just here. And so this is, what it was. This was the PDF. And just like that, we pretty much have the whole portfolio finished. Looks nice and neat. We have, super responsive, nice overflows. We've got all our links. Looks good on a big screen as well. The other thing I might just do is come back into our layout just here. I lie into our page. And for this H2, I'm just going to say on a small screen, we're going to have a padding Y of 4. And on a medium screen, we're going to have a padding Y of 8. And that's just going to space out a little bit more. So we get a bit more space around our digital resume. We've got all our links working. They can see our skills super easily. We can go check out the projects, view all the different projects, check out the links. We can download the PDF. We've got our little nav bars all done. And obviously we can route back to the main page. So yeah, it's a super tidy little portfolio, but it's done me a lot of good, and I imagine it can do the same for you too. Anyway, thank you so much for watching the video. If you've enjoyed it, don't forget to like and subscribe. It's super appreciated, helps the channel, and helps me make more videos like this. I hope you've learned something about Next.js and Tailwind. Absolute powerhouse of a combo. I love it personally, and I enjoy sharing it with you guys. Like, subscribe, hit the notification bell, and stay tuned for the next video. Catch you guys in the next one. Peace.